People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, if you're not having fun doing it, and you don't really love it, you're going to give up. And that's what happens to most people, actually. If you really look at the ones that ended up, being successful, unquote, in the eyes of society, and the ones that didn't, oftentimes it's the ones that are successful loved what they did so they could persevere when it got really tough. And the ones that didn't love it quit because they're sane, right? Who would want to put up with this stuff if you don't love it? So it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of worrying constantly. And if you don't love it, you're going to fail.
Young people globally want to be like Elon Musk. What's your advice to them?
I think that probably they shouldn't want to be.
You?
I think it sounds better than it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as much fun being me as you'd think. I don't know.
You don't think so?
No. There's definitely, it could be worse for sure, but I'm not sure I want to be me.
Okay.
But I think advice, if you want to make progress in things, I think the best analytical framework for understanding the future is physics. I'd recommend studying the thinking process around physics, like not the equations. The equations certainly they're helpful, but the way of thinking in physics is it's the best framework for understanding things that are counterintuitive, and always taking the position that you are to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong over time. And one of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. Like you want something to be true, even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. And like I said, it's certainly one that I find myself in having problems with. But if you just take that approach of you're always to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong, and solicit critical feedback, particularly from friends. Like friends, particularly friends, if somebody loves you, they want the best for you. They don't want to tell you the bad things. So you have to ask them, and say, really, I really do want to know. and then they'll tell you.
Diversified identity in some fashion. I think this is important so that your self-worth isn't only associated with your startup. That's probably a controversial recommendation. What that means is you should actually spend time involved with other skills. So in San Francisco, for instance, many startup founders I know who are very efficient and effective have their startup rock climbing, they get outside, they do a few things so that if one goes well, they can remain optimistic each week, which is very difficult if you're only directed at your startup.
I refuse to follow those rules that society has set up in the way that they control people with low self-esteem, with improper information, with branding, with marketing. I refuse to follow those rules. It's about truth, it's about information, it's about awesomeness, and the only luxury is time, the time you spend with your family. That's the only luxury. So this concept of luxury is improper to me. When I compare myself to Steve Jobs or Walt Disney, Howard Hughes, David Stern, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Jesus, or whatever it is, I'm saying these are my heroes. These are people that I look up to. This is the type of impact I want to make on the earth. If I can make this type of impact up to this point, what can I do if you call Bob Iger and say, yo, give him a shot? If you call Oprah and say, yo, back this kid. His parents were educators. He wants to educate. He wants to look at curriculums and say, how do we simplify that? Exactly what I did in music, I want to apply to product. I want to apply to education. This is what my company, Donda, is about.
You got to have a plan. Everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got a goal. What's the plan? And your plan has got to have something I call the C5 complex. Your plan has got to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. You've got to have a plan. And when you're trying to do something that you're truly passionate about, there is no plan B.
Okay.
Plan
Go for
B
it.
sucks.
All right. Okay, so it's as simple as that.
You got to have a plan. I mean, think about that for a second. 3 examples. Michael Jordan won 6 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls because he was committed to Plan A, not Plan B. Oprah Winfrey became the queen of all media because she was committed to Plan A, not Plan B. Whatever your politics are, Barack Obama is sitting in the White House because he was committed to Plan A, not Plan B.
Okay.
Plan B sucks.
You have so much intelligence in your body right now. I'll prove it to you. Jump up and down a little bit, and make a little space from the person next to you if you can. So if you went like this, you're ideally not going to take anyone's eye out or anything like that. Okay. Now stop bouncing. I love the energy though. Notice where your feet are. I want you to keep your feet stationary the entire time. And what I want you to do is with your right hand, just point forward with your right hand. Your other right hand, sir. Sorry. I know. All right, forward with your right hand. And what I want you to do is without moving your feet, just turn to your right, clockwise, as far as you could go, and notice where you're pointing as you take your neighbor's eye out. Notice how far you could go, notice where you're pointing. Notice the exact spot. Come back center. Now put your arms down. Now I'm gonna take you through a really quick visualization exercise. So take a deep breath, exhale, and close your eyes. Put your arms by your side, out of your pockets, by your side, and breathe normally. And with your eyes closed, we're gonna play a game. I want you just imagine that you're raising your arm again, but this time imagine you're turning twice as far, 2 times as far. Like you're getting a good stretch, it's pleasant. Feel that in your body. And if you can't imagine it, just imagine that you're imagining it. And then again, raise your arm, point forward. And this time, no, with your eyes closed, just imagine, just in your mind, see and feel yourself turning 3 times as far. Just feel it in your body with your arms by your side. Just imagine turning around 3 times. And then one more time with a smile on your face thinking, what does this have to do with learning faster? See and feel yourself turning 4 times around in your body. See and feel yourself turning 4 times around like you're Gumby, like you're made out of rubber. Great, great stretch. All right, open your eyes. Now, raise your arm again, point forward with your right hand. And now turn to your right now, as far as you can now go. Wow. Raise your hand or make some noise if you went further a second time. Have a seat. Now, some of you went further. Some of you went 25% further. Some of you went 50% further. Yes? Raise your hand if you went further a second time. Now, here's the magic question, right? That you know I'm gonna ask you even before I ask it. Were you physically capable of turning that far the first time? Yes. Like nobody took a yoga class when my eyes were closed, right? You're physically capable of it. Where was the block or the limitation, if there was one? Where was it? In your mind, right? In your mind. And you're like, Jim, I didn't have a belief on how far I could turn. How many beliefs do you think we have? Millions and zillions of beliefs, right? Because here's what you want to write down. All behavior is belief driven. All behavior is belief what? Some of you went 25, 50% further with no anything. Remember Vishen was talking about how it's not working hard, but it's when you're in a certain state of mind, you could just go further and it's effortless. How many people have experienced this state of flow before? That state of flow where you lose track of time, where your attention is right there and you're in the moment. And it's the level of challenge is really matching your level of capabilities, and you're stretching yourself and you're in that zone, right? Like that athletes talk about, that Stephen Kotler talks about in The Rise of Superman and Stealing Fire and so on. How many people are familiar with Steve's work, by the way? I'm just curious as context. Okay, so how do you get into those states? One of the ways is just believing that you can. Because if you believe you can or believe you can, either way you're right, because all behavior is belief driven. Some of you went 25, 50% or more. What if you could go 25, 50% more in your business? That effortless. What if you could go 25, 50% even more in your body or in your relationship? Did you work harder the second time? When you turned the second time, yes or no? No, because it's a state, right? So behavior, so belief.
In August of '87, we had 11 stores and 100 employees and a dream to create a national retail company around the coffee experience, good coffee in America. But there was another dream I had, and that was to build a different type of company. A company that potentially could achieve the delicate balance between profitability and the fiscal responsibility of building shareholder value, but the balance of also having a heart, benevolence, and integrating a social conscience in everything the company would do. And hopefully one day, remember this was '87, the company would be known as much for its values, its culture, its guiding principles, as it would the quality of its coffee. Fast forward from '87 to '89 and 1990, the company was beginning to get some traction. We had about 50 stores. We still were not making money. And I think we all realized at the time that we were not in the coffee business serving people, but we were in the people business serving coffee. That if we wanted to exceed the expectations of the customer, we had to first exceed the expectations of our people. We made a very important strategic decision early on that franchising could not maintain the culture and values of the company, that all it would be an access to cheap capital. And so we continued on track of opening and building a company-owned system.
What worked for me regarding balance between family and business opportunities was always to be mindful of, in a tie, family comes first. My child always came first. If you've managed your relationships properly, the business presentation you're so concerned about, the big conference call that cannot happen without you on the phone, all those things can be rescheduled. But your son is going to have one first baseball game. Your daughter's going to have one first dance recital, and you gotta be there. In a tie, family wins.
I only invest in things that I understand and things that I use or would use myself. This is really, really, really important. Anytime I step outside of that is usually when the universe kicks me in the nuts really hard and I lose my money. I think it's critical to, as an entrepreneur, scratch your own itch. It increases the odds of success or the probability of success. And then as an investor, I look for people who are scratching their own itch.
A lot of us are in the circumstances when it's starting where there ain't no plan B. Shit gotta work. If it don't work, what's gonna happen? You know, so if you're in that point and position, you go, what's working? And you start to get influence or you sway to what's actually working at the moment. And your music changes and starts to sound a little bit like what's happening on the radio right now. I've heard demo tapes from 10 different Lil Waynes that wasn't Lil Wayne. You know what I mean? I was like, damn, he got that shit down pat. That shit sounds like what Wayne did, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. And then it's tough. Like, how do you say that it's not good? If what's working right now is that. You know what I'm saying? So you go, damn, like it's good, but it's hard for me to really embrace it because you ain't Lil Wayne. Like, you want me to invest the money in the copy? No, man, I'm saying. That shit ain't gonna work, man.
I made in my mind as a young guy, I wanted to become world-class at something. I just had to find out what the something was going to be. And the very first time that I walked into a Wall Street trading room, I knew this is it. The ticker tape is rolling, the phones are ringing off the hook, people are screaming and shouting out orders, bodies are flying all over the place, and what looked like chaos to anybody else, I could see the natural rhythm in it. It was like I was reading a sheet of music, and I knew this is where I'm supposed to be. I kept coming back. I wore one branch manager down to the point that he says to me, Gardner, based on persistence alone, we're gonna give you a shot. Man, I quit my job. That was all I wanted. I went home and I told my ex, you know what? You said I couldn't do it, but guess what? I start in 2 weeks.
Say someone has horrible names, right? But let's say that there's a suitcase of $100,000 cash if you just remember the name of the next stranger you meet. How many people are going to remember that person's name?
I'll remember.
Everyone, right? Everyone. And so that's the thing. The M stands for motivation. So it's interesting. So all of a sudden, everyone's a memory expert, but it had nothing to do with their capacity or their potential. Everyone could do it. It's just whether or not they decided to do it or not, if they wanted to.
It's almost like if it's worth it enough or the consequences are, that big, or the stakes are that big, if you're going to miss out on not, right? It's the motivation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because one of the things to learning, we know with human motivation, because I did this presentation and Bill Gates was there. And we're talking about wealthy individuals, right? And so, afterwards I talked to him and we were talking about the bridge between education and technology, and I was like, what's missing? What's the future of learning? And he was like, Jim, the key is human motivation, really understanding what drives people. And I was like, wow, that's really right. Because this, people could go out there and they could buy courses, but a lot of people
never open it.
Exactly, because it has everything to do with drive and reasons. Because motivation is like what is your motive for acting?
Sure.
Right? What's the fuel? I believe there's a success formula called H3, that it goes from your head to your heart to your hands. That people could visualize and affirm and see things here all the time and think about it, but if they're not acting with their hands, actually doing something about it, then usually what's missing is the second H, which is the heart, the emotion, the energy of motion. I had a martial arts instructor tell me years ago, you can't steer a parked car. You need fuel. Where's the energy that's going to do that? And so what's people's motive for action? So simple. When people are remembering people's names, ask yourself, why do you want to remember this person's name? Because reasons reap results. I've always found that in life.
Wow.
Reasons reap results, because you need a big enough why.
Sure.
Like Simon Sinek's book, start with why.
Yeah.
And so you want to get that drive first.
We had absolutely no idea what people were going to do these things when we started out. Matter of fact, the two people it was designed for was Woz and myself, because we couldn't afford to buy a computer kit on the market. So we liberated some parts from Hewlett-Packard and Atari, and worked on a design for about 6 months and decided that we would build our own computer. So we built one, and Woz was up till 4 in the morning for many moons, and we got it working. We showed some of our friends. Immediately, everybody wanted one. And it turned out that it took about 40 hours to build one of these things and about another 20, 30, 40 to debug it. And we had a lot of friends that worked at similar companies who could liberate the parts also. And we found ourselves spending every spare moment of our time helping our friends to build computers. And it was just getting to be a tremendous drain on our lives. So we got the idea one day that we could make a printed circuit board without the parts in it, and sell these blank printed circuit boards to our friends and probably cut the assembly and debug time down to, 5-10 hours. So Woz sold his HP 6 calculator and I sold my van, and we got $1,300 together, and we paid our friend of ours who was this PC board layout person $1,300 to do us a layout, and decided we'd sell printed circuit boards at twice what it cost to build them and hopefully recoup our calculator and transportation at some later date. So that's what we did, and I was out trying to peddle PC boards one day and walked into a bite shop, the first bite shop in Mountain View. And Paul Terrell, the then owner of the bite shop, said he would like to take 50 of these computers. And I saw dollar signs in front of my eyes. But he had one catch, which was that he wanted them fully assembled and tested, ready to go, which is a new twist. So we spent the next 5 days on the phone to distributors and convinced the electronics parts distributors around here to give us about $10,000 worth of parts on thin air, just on enthusiasm. So we got the parts and we built 100 computers and we sold 50 of them for cash, and in 29 days paid off the distributors. And that's how we got started. So we had 50 computers left over. Well, that meant we had to sell them. So then we started worrying about marketing, worrying about distribution, got on the phone to the other computer stores around the country. And gradually the whole thing began to build momentum. And at that point in time, we had some feeling that we were onto something. But the feeling is so different than the experience of actually seeing it happen right now. It's entirely different. And sometimes a lot of people ask, well, did you know it was going to mushroom into this phenomenon? And you could say, yeah, we planned it out. We had lead on a piece of paper. But it's different than the experience of seeing 500 people working at Apple Computer. It's very different than the experience of seeing a 5-year-old kid who really understands the tool that he's got in front of him.
Quincy Jones had, I would not even say an important role, I would say the role in my acting career. Quincy Jones discovered me. And it's so interesting to me because when I was working as a television newswoman in Baltimore, and really all I wanted to do was be an actress, but I was doing television, and I felt at the time, well, I can't quit this job because this is what everybody else wants to do. And if I quit this job, what am I going to do? And I was going to a speech coach at the time that the station had sent me to. The broadcasting school, they sent everybody to the same woman. And I was telling her, I really don't want to do this. What I really want to do is act. And she says, my dear, you don't want to act, because if you wanted to act, you'd be doing it. What you want to be, my dear, is a star. Because if you wanted to act, you'd be waiting tables in New York. And I thought, now why am I going to wait tables if I'm already working in TV? So I said, well, what I think is going to happen is I will be discovered, because I want it so badly. Somebody's going to have to discover me. And she said, you just dream. You dream, you're a dreamer. So when it happened, I called her up. I said, you will not believe this. I got discovered. And it really was a discovery. It's like one of those Lana Turner stories, only it wasn't a drugstore. He was in his hotel room, saw me on TV. It was unbelievable. So the interesting thing about that is that I truly believe that thoughts are the greatest vehicle to change power and success in the world. Everything begins with thoughts. I mean, the chairs that we're sitting in, the room that we're in, all started because somebody thought it. So I thought up The Color Purple for myself. I know this is going to sound strange to you. I read the book. I got so many copies of that book. I passed the book around to everybody I knew. If I was on the bus, I'd pass it out to people. And when I heard that there was going to be a movie, I started talking it up for myself. I didn't know Quincy Jones or Steven Spielberg or how on earth I would get in this movie. I'd never acted in my life, but I felt it so intensely that I had to be a part of that movie. I really do believe I created it for myself. I wanted it more than anything in the world and would have done anything to do it. Anything to do it.
If you're looking to instigate a change in your life, there's no better or worse time than right now. Hey, I understand. Change is scary. With the status quo, you know what you've got. If you shake things up, there's no telling what you might end up with. But two other things are true about change. One, it's absolutely necessary for personal growth, and two, it's gonna happen. Either you can pick the time to instigate the change you want, or the change and the time will pick you. So if you happen to be one of those people who's standing on the sidelines of your dreams, waiting for that perfect moment, if you want to make that change but you just don't know if you're ready, this life lesson is for you. It's time to stop digging your potatoes and jump.
My parents immigrated here to the United States from Asia. We grew up like a lot of individuals that work really hard. Grew up in the back of a laundromat, and they had many different jobs. I think one of the things that's important for all of us is just the work ethic. To be able to put in, like you do, the incredible hours as an entrepreneur, as a visionary, to do whatever it takes, because I don't believe that there's necessarily a magic pill, but I think there's a process. And doing the work is very important. I don't want people to believe that there's a silver bullet and all of a sudden you have a great memory, or you have this great success or great relationship or health. And people always ask, what's the one thing I could do? And I always tell people that you have to do most of it. Right? I mean, be smart about it, but you have to put in the work, because a lot of times people see on social media, they see all of the success, but what they don't see is the hustle, right? As Gary Vee talks about, and I think as they say, what you practice in private, they say you're rewarded for in public, right. But you have to do the work, and I think that's where I got my work ethic. The challenge is growing up with a brain injury and labeled the boy with a broken brain. I had to work so much harder as everybody else, and you wonder why you're not getting those results. And so I got my discipline from my parents, and I love them for them. I really say that they are my superheroes. And anything good that's come out of me is really a product of them.
People have you met in your life who have said things like, I had that idea. I knew about that. Or I was so close, but I gave up. I think sometimes the difference between success and failure, winning and losing, is a very fine line between those people who continue to move forward.
You have to remind yourself that it's okay to feel the way you feel when you're going through a difficult time. It's okay to feel weak. It's okay to want to cry. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Just reminding yourself that it's okay. This is my number one way of how to find strength in difficult times, is reminding yourself that the way you feel is okay. To honor that feeling, to accept that feeling, to actually be okay with that, what we see or what we perceive to be a weakness, or what we perceive to let us down, or what we perceive is a sign of, instability or insecurity. We've got to remind ourselves that when things are tough, it's okay to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with that. Any difficulty I go to, I look to moments in history where people have endured the same pain, if not more extreme, and analyze, absorb, and connect with how they got through it. I like to see what they were thinking. I like to see what they did. I like to see how they structured themselves. I like to look at how they organized. Like to look at who they were speaking to. I like to look at what was going through their mind at that time, because you've got to remember that any challenge we're facing today, we've faced it before as humanity, right? Beyond ethnicities, beyond color, race, creed, beyond backgrounds, beyond all walks of life. As human beings, we've been through challenges before and we've got through them. And therefore, reconnecting with how that's been done before is a beautiful way of learning how to overcome current challenges. So you can either look at your past, but real wisdom lies in looking at the past of people who made a difference. You look at people like Martin Luther King, you look at people like Gandhi, you look at people who made world-changing differences, not single-handedly, but influenced from a single perspective, from a single point of view, and really connecting with the powerful moments in history. I've said this quote many times, I've read it many times, and this quote actually is unbelievable. And the quote says that they thought they buried us, they didn't know we were seeds, right? It's a Mexican proverb. They thought they buried us, they didn't know we were seeds. And I was thinking, when you tell yourself that story, you start thinking much more differently, right? A seed is buried too. It's incredible that the seed goes through the same process as anything else. It's put deep underground, right? All of this mud is put on top of it. It gets rained on, it gets snowed on, all these kind of things, but it knows that it's a seed. So it knows that it can grow, so that anything's possible. And it grows through, and you see even plants growing through concrete sometimes, right? It's unbelievable how much power a seed has. So changing the stories we tell ourselves, we can either look at challenging situations as opportunities for growth, as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to change, be the change, or we can look at them and really feel down. Now, that second part is okay. We can even feel like that, right? But we have to recognize it's not permanent. We've got to accept that none of our feelings are permanent. They don't need to be permanent. It's a choice. So if you need to vent, vent. I was saying to someone yesterday, if you need to vent, vent. If you need to rant, rant. If you need to complain, complain. If you need to share how you feel, do that. But recognize that those feelings are not permanent, and it will be amazing when we realize we are seeds, right? That is the most powerful way of finding strength.
There's one skill to master in the 21st century. It's the ability to learn rapidly. You know what it is? They call it in the military a forced multiplier. A forced multiplier is like input goes in, but you get exponential output from it. It's like optimism. Being positive is a force multiplier, right? And Colin Powell said that. And so certain things like learning how to learn, like meta learning or improving your memory, improves everything. It improves your business, improves, you can remember people's names. You can remember sales presentations. You could remember things about a people. Because for example, it's hard to show somebody, for people who are watching this, they're entrepreneurs, right? And they're wearing a business development hat. It's really hard to show someone you're going to care for their business, their future, their family, their health, their fitness, whatever you're selling them, if you don't care enough just to remember things like their name, or their kid's name, or their birthday.
That's so true.
So that's a memory is a multiplier there. A memory is a multiplier in their relationships. Relationships, just remembering those moments. Not even just remembering anniversaries, remembering to take out the garbage, that kind of stuff, but remembering, the first time you and your loved one, took that walk on that beach. You know what I mean? Those kind of moments that make everything worthwhile.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful for every area. So I do believe that two of the most costly words in business, for example, are "I forgot." I forgot to do it, I forgot to bring it, I forgot the meeting, I forgot your name.
It's the worst.
Like
right?
you could forgetting someone's name, and I've seen this time and time again, it could hurt a relationship, it could kill deals. I've had people call someone by the wrong name and they've lost multiple $1 million deals just on that. My message to people, whether it's on stage or on the podcast or anything, is that, we are more than what we're demonstrating, that we've been sold this lie, that people are taught through school. Like when I do these demos and I on stage memorize 100 names and words and numbers forwards and backwards, and it appears effortlessly, I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you, I do this to express to you what's really possible, because the truth is, everyone can do this too, and so much more. Apply towards creativity and focus and flow and problem solving and thinking and really overcoming the biggest challenges of their life and maybe even the world. The challenge is we were taught a lie. We were taught a lie that somehow our intelligence, our potential, our learning, our memory somehow is fixed, our creativity is fixed, our thinking is fixed like our shoe size. And what we've discovered, as you know, more about brain science, in the past 2 decades, we've discovered more than the previous 2,000 years. And what we know is that we're grossly underestimating our own capacity to be able to grow, to be able to contribute, to improve our intelligence and our influence and our impact. And I want to kind of pull the veil behind and just say, hey, this is about transcending. This is about ending the trance that we're not good enough, that we're not smart enough, that we're not this genius, and telling the truth. And the truth is, we're faster and we're smarter than we think. And not just to be able to memorize things, but be able to really solve significant challenges. And maybe that these challenges that we're going through are the lessons that we need to learn the most. And then some people who learn those lessons feel compelled to be able to share that voice with other people. So it's not just one candle. Say everyone uses a search engine like Google every single day, but a lot of people, they use it 10 times a day. If I ask them, are you willing to bet your life you know what colors the letters are? Because that's an observation.
Sure.
There's a difference between looking at something and seeing it, really seeing it. There's a difference between hearing something and really listening. Like leaders, like for example, I had this whole escapade with the X-Men, which was insane, but I had to leave the set because I had to go to a charity event. And one of the people that I think leaders, independent of your political bent, who has an incredible memory is President Clinton. Every single time I've met President Clinton, he's remembered my name.
No way.
He does. And how many people does
he says, hey Jim, good to see you?
How many people does Clinton meet on a regular basis, right?
A lot.
And so that's a leadership skill though, right? And so FDR was incredible with names. Also, he would walk around the White House and point people out and say hi to them, saying hi to their spouse and using by name. I mean, that's because think about the sweetest sound to a person's ears, right?
Their name.
It's their name,
Yeah.
right? And so anyway, I asked him what's memory trick he uses. He uses no memory tricks at all. And he tells me this, this amazing story.
To Bill.
Yes. And so he tells me this incredible story about how, his grandfather, in Arkansas would get all the kids around and tell stories to them, but then he would quiz them. They would really need to listen and be present. And it's funny because I noticed that, Bill Clinton is, regardless of how you feel politically, incredible communicator, incredible charisma, incredible connector, right? And he also, this memory, I find, he has this incredible presence, this powerful presence, but I find that his powerful presence and his memory comes from being powerfully present. His powerful presence comes from being powerfully present. And here's the thing, when people are networking, because I know a lot of people, they're entrepreneurs, they're social entrepreneurs, and millennials, and they're going out there meeting people, because really it's what you know and it's who you know. But that's all memory. What you know, a lot of people go to a seminar, 2 days later, they'll forget everything, right? 80%, there's this big forgetting curve, but also who you know and who knows you, right? But what the challenge is they'll be networking, and how many times do you find yourself talking to somebody and then looking over their shoulder?
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate when people do that to me.
Exactly.
It's like annoying.
Because you're distracting yourself all the time. Or if you're not distracting yourself externally, you're talking to yourself.
What am I going to say next?
Exactly.
Right.
So the people aren't even listening. Now this is so key. When people are communicating, most of the times you find that they're not even really listening. What they are is they're thinking about how they're going to respond.
Right, yeah.
And if you look at the word listen and you scramble the letters, it becomes the word silent.
No.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? If people would just do that.